here's the thing.
This
election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025.
This is Noah Bierman. I'm an enterprise reporter in the LA Times Washington Bureau. These are going to be the 5 takeaways from the Republican primary debate from Wednesday night.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
The first one is that Trump was the elephant not in the room, as the moderators in the debate said. And that was definitely the case. The candidates were basically dancing with Trump's shadow the whole time. Very little criticism. It was the lower polling candidates who really took Trump on most head on. Asa Hutchinson was the only one who didn't raise his hand when they asked whether the candidates would support Trump as a general election candidate if he won, even if he was convicted of a crime. Chris Christie, in the second half of the debate, went after his character quite a bit. Nikki Haley went after him from an electability standpoint, but didn't go after his character. And then the other candidates, including Ron DeSantis, who really needed to take shots at Trump or needed to somehow get a hit on Trump, were very careful not to go after him.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to address each of those right now. This is the false lies of a professional politician. There you have it.
Your watch,
so the reality
make America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what?
The second takeaway was a divide over foreign policy. You saw that really in a most pronounced way over Ukraine, where the United States is aiding and supporting Ukraine as it defends itself from an invasion from Russia. The Republican Party was once a really hawkish party. Remember, George W. Bush was the one who took this country into wars in the Middle East, in both Iraq and Afghanistan. It has changed. Trump was the first to take note of that change in a really strong way. And Vivek Ramaswamy is a lesser known candidate who's really trying to channel the energy of the Republican base and some of the isolationism and opposition to the American support for Ukraine. But he had a real clash with Nikki Haley, who's the most old school conservative foreign policy hand, who was a former United Nations ambassador, and really feels strongly that the United States needs to maintain that posture that she and others consider leadership in the world and in Europe in countering Russia. The next takeaway involved Ron DeSantis. He really had the most on the line. The Florida governor was considered the most serious challenger to Trump just a few months ago, and he's really slid in the polls. And the first debate, was his chance to really punch up and make a case for himself. He didn't do poorly, but he also didn't do that. It's fair to say he probably didn't change many minds with that debate performance, and he needed to make a breakthrough performance, and he didn't. The next takeaway is that Fox lost control. Fox is the most conservative of the mainstream networks, and they have profited off the Republican Party's disdain and conservatives' disdain for the mainstream media by promoting themselves as the alternative. But they are not immune from the criticism that conservatives have right now for the media. And the candidates seem to be taking turns interrupting the moderators and trying to score points off of who could ignore the moderators the most. And the fact that Trump didn't show up and felt it wasn't going to hurt him at all in the polls is another indication that Fox, is not quite as dominant in the party right now as maybe they once were. The final takeaway is really a summary, again, having to do with Trump. He is far and away the dominant candidate here, but he's a risky candidate for a general election, unprecedented because he's facing several indictments and he tried to overturn an election, did a lot of things that would normally make him somebody who would not be the nominee. So who is the logical alternative if Trump does falter and does not become the nominee? Well, we really don't have an answer for that. The debate showed us that the party is not yet ready to coalesce around any of these candidates. Maybe they have a shot. Maybe they see a window. They certainly do. Most candidates do. But from the outside, it was pretty clear watching the debate that we just aren't at that point where we have somebody who we can say is the most viable consensus alternative to Trump. The one thing that a few of the candidates did, which is often the goal in these debates, was get to introduce themselves to a larger public. Both Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy probably are going to get a little more attention after this debate because they were a bit of a presence in the debate, and they will get some more people curious about their candidacies, which is really their goal.